The first off-season Fanmail Friday for Locked On Angels, and we asked you, what should the Angels focus on as they prepare for 2024? And you had a lot of thoughts, really good thoughts, and we're sharing them right now. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcast, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And you can help out the show in a few ways. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, hit that subscription button and become a Locked On everydayer. And whether you're on the audio side or the video side, make sure to leave a comment. It's the best way to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation.
Hey, thanks for being here for this Fan Mail Friday edition of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Mike, I'm really excited about today because we had so many great submissions for our question. Look, we know Arte is going to be here, and nothing changes until he sells the team, and we're reminded of that daily in our comments and on Twitter and but you have to work within the confines of your circumstances. And even though those circumstances are, not great because Arte isn't going anywhere anytime soon, I felt like it was a good idea for us to kind of explore how the Angels could improve in 2024 outside of the confines of we need a new owner. We all agree we would love a new owner. We'd love somebody who loves baseball and enjoys watching their team win. Right now, it's not the way it's looking. And so our Locked On Everydayers sent in some great suggestions, Mike, that I'm really looking forward to. In fact, the first round of suggestions all had to do with health and the medical staff and the training staff. In fact, we had suggestions regarding the Angels training the medical staff from Nosa Jarek, CJB661, El Rubinaso, and Shelby XYXT on Instagram. And they all had great questions about the training staff and the medical staff. But I think our friend Swilly Sports on Twitter summed it up very well. Mike, why don't you read what Swilly had to say?
Yeah, she's great. Super smart baseball fan. She said, if I was Arte, and then she had the puke emoji. If I was Arte, I'd be taking a deeper look and putting money into our athletic training department. I have no idea what that department looks like internally, other than the fact that we've fired and hired so many times in the last few years in hopes of injury numbers improving, but they don't. So not necessarily hiring someone new, but improving what we have. Seemingly, the department is behind the times in terms of philosophy and practices, equipment, and overall education. Maybe a combination of all three. Are we even holding players accountable to get treatment? Injuries have been the largest issue as of recent years. So that's where my focus would go. Love that.
I love that too. And it's funny that she mentioned, are we holding players accountable to their treatment? Because
great question.
I think I had suggested earlier this season, do we know if the players are doing the regimen that they're supposed to be doing in terms of stretching and doing all the pre-warm-ups that they're supposed to do? I mean, you'd think so, but
but just, I know this was years ago, but CJ Wilson's tweet just is in my mind at the moment. And when he said that, hey, if you just run to first base, that would be the great way to get started for spring training.
That'll warm you up.
And hey, if you stop by Chick-fil-A and get one of those chicken sandwiches, that'll be your breakfast for this morning. And so I know, again, that was, early 2010s, but I can't think that maybe things aren't that different, right?
Well, here's some of the ways that they might be different. In fact, Jeff Fletcher of the OC Register put out a really interesting article on Wednesday regarding the training staff. In the article, he detailed that Perry hired 5 new people over last offseason. Mike Frostad and Matt Biancuzzo, they both returned. Eric Munson's been around for years. Rick Smith has been around for years. Those are all the head athletic trainers. Matt Tenney has been the head and strength and conditioning coach since 2022. Adam Auer is the assistant strength and conditioning coach. He's in his 5th season. Mike, they have 2 physical therapists and 1 massage therapist. And Jeff had the great idea of asking guys who have been on other teams to evaluate what the Angels have. And Grichuk, Anderson, Drury, Wallach, and Phillips all said that the medical and strength and conditioning staff have all been really great with the Angels. So what are the Angels missing or doing wrong here? Are they doing anything wrong, or are they just cursed and have bad luck when it comes to medical stuff?
It's hard to say, and I think that's why we always lean into the cursed conversation, right? It's really hard to say what's what's missing. We talked on yesterday's show about how the Angels seem to be a bit understaffed compared to other major league teams in a lot of different areas. Johnny, I think that maybe it just might be having some extra people around to be able to focus on specific players. Like, hey, you're the infield guy, you're the outfield guy, you're the bullpen guy, you're the starting pitcher guy, because the more eyeballs you have on these players, the more that you're going to be able to identify if there's any issues and if they have any tweaks in how they're approaching the game. And I think at this point, with the names that are mentioned, perhaps they're just overwhelmed. And I don't put the blame on them at all. I just think that with what happened this past year, this isn't something that you can ignore anymore. And as Willie Sports pointed out, it's been happening for so long. It's not something that you can just say, well, it is a thing, right? It's more than just a thing. It's something that you have to address. It's something that you have to solve. And I would throw a whole lot of cash at it. I would throw a whole lot of intellect at it. I would throw a whole lot of people at it, because it's something that just can't keep continuing to happen with the Angels organization.
Yeah, there's tons of capable people out there who could come in and maybe provide some answers. Mike, one of the things we talked about yesterday in Sam Blum's article was the fact that the Rays have this staff of 15 people for like physiology and all kinds of sciences and stuff. And I think that is kind of crucial to having a training staff, like have a sciencey group of people behind the training staff to help these guys, make sure they're not doing anything out of the ordinary. And I say that fully knowing, like, Shane McClanahan had to have Tommy John. I understand that the stuff like that's going to happen.
Injuries are going to happen. Absolutely.
But I think that the Rays show a willingness to be prepared and have plans in place so that they can address this sort of thing. I think that them having a whole staff like that is really good. Somebody said on YouTube, and it was really good. They said the Angels are kind of like behind the times, and the rest of the league is scientifically steroided, because in the 90s, everybody's doing steroids.
Yeah.
And everyone else goes, oh, well, we'll do them too and play catch up. And now the Angels are behind the times scientifically. So everybody's scientifically roided up, Mike, and we're in the dust.
Well, I think that's a great way to describe this, because you're going to have the people who are on the front line, like the Mike Frostads and those types of guys. But then to have somebody behind the scenes, or somebody that's a layer deeper, maybe even two people that are 2 layers deeper, they're going to be able to identify one specific thing that they can communicate to Frostad, or they can communicate to the massage therapist, or whatever the case might be, because they're only going to be able to focus on one particular thing because they have the freedom to do that. And I think the medical staff right now, there's probably pages and pages and pages of things that they have to focus on. And so the more help that you can get them, I think that it will be better for these players to be able to identify some things, and maybe even bringing in some, I would say, unique, maybe new trendy things. Like, have they tried yoga? Have they tried hot yoga? Have they tried puppy yoga? Would you give up your puppy for a bit, Johnny, to be able to have them do puppy yoga, right?
Yeah,
like,
we can get Lemon in on
get
that.
Lemon in there, right? Because these are the types of things that I think that you need. And I would also say this. I think that if they move in that direction, they not only need to go young with this team, Johnny, I think they need to go a bit younger with their training staff. I think you need some young minds in the room to be able to bring up some new ideas and then filter it through the experience of Frostad and others. But I think young minds in the room, I've experienced this in the organization I lead. I have a lot of young minds around me, and then I get to be dad and filter through like what's good and what we need to wait on, those types of things. And the ideas that come to me would not be ideas that I would come up with on my own.
By the way, if you see me in the Angels dugout, that's not me. That's Matt Biancuzzo. He's the guy with the long hair and the glasses. Some people have asked, is that John Frisch in the dugout?
Didn't get hired as the scout?
I didn't get that scouting job yet, but I'm waiting for it. Mike, our friend Jay, the one and only former Retire Salmon 15 on Twitter, he had a list here. He said, bring in a sports psychologist for Sandy. Yes.
Love that.
I do know that they have one on staff. So they need to have Sandy sit down with him.
Just for Sandy.
Invest more in international scouting. Of course.
Yeah.
Increase focus on top quality strength and conditioning coaches and trainers. Obviously. Hire great baseball minds. And then, Mike, here's some to get excited about. Blank check to Greg Maddux and Nolan Ryan to be the pitching coach.
Wow.
And finally, burn sage at the stadium.
That's funny. Thinking about Greg Maddux and Nolan Ryan, I think Nolan Ryan is more of a front office guy.
Yeah.
And he's been in the front office I think in the Rangers organization, and maybe was it another organization or was it just Rangers? I know that he's been in the front office before. When I think about Greg Maddux, I wonder what kind of teacher he is, because he obviously was a fantastic pitcher and he knew how to paint the corners. In fact, have you seen that meme of a house that said, "Hey, I asked Greg Maddux to paint my house," and all of the side of the house is painted, but the middle part of the house is not? And I think Greg Maddux has a great eye. In fact, he has been interviewed recently and he's talked about like how he was successful against Barry Bonds. And he said, I wouldn't throw him a strike. And if I walked him, I walked him. Right. And I love that mentality because he's like, it's Barry Bonds. So why would I throw him a strike? I'm not going to challenge him. I'm going to go after the next guy. And I think that that's a piece of what he could bring to this team. And maybe perhaps for these younger guys, letting them know like, hey, here's when you challenge and here's when you don't. Yeah. And here's how you can hit the corners and here's when you don't have to hit the corners. Right. And I would just wonder about his ability to teach, because he hasn't really managed or coached anywhere that I'm aware of. But that's an intriguing player, a former player, to bring over to be a coach for the Angels.
By the way, Lemon's out on puppy yoga. He's asleep on the job right now. So
sweet.
I got eyes on him. So
fire him.
Yeah, he's fired. Hey, coming up on Locked On Angels, friends, we got a hot take about Shohei Ohtani, and we also have more of your suggestions on how to make the team better in 2024. We're going to get to all of that coming right up.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by Ibotta. It's football season, so Angel fans celebrate because we have something to watch and something to enjoy. I love baseball playoffs, but it's also great that we have football to watch, and we're 49er fans, so that makes it even better. But since it is football season, that means pizza and wings and maybe even some buffalo chicken dip. Oh, it's so good. I love buffalo chicken dip. Whatever you prefer at your tailgate, go all out and get cash back on every purchase with Ibotta. Ibotta gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items, no matter what you're purchasing. And the average Ibotta user earns $120 a year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, or could be your gas money with gas prices right now. In this economy, other apps give you points that don't amount to much, but with Ibotta, you can get real cash back. And that cash can go into your bank account or PayPal, or it can come out as a gift. And using Ibotta is simple. You can link your loyalty account or upload your receipt after you shop, and you can get cash back that easy. Go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app. And when you do, use our promo code MLB. That's Ibotta in the Google Play Store or App Store, and use our code MLB.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Hey, Locked On Everydayers, you guys are amazing because we have over 250 responses.
Love it.
On our Angels roster 2023 report card that you guys have filled out for us. And Sunday is the due date. If we're going to do report cards and teaching stuff, we're going to say due date.
Yeah, make sure you put your name at the top,
right,
period number, and
the date. Exactly. But you have a chance to fill that out. It's in the episode description on YouTube, in the episode description on the audio side, whether it's Spotify or Apple or SiriusXM. It's all there in the episode description. So click that link, fill out the report card for each player in 2023. And we're going to share those results next week, starting Monday, Mike. So I'm really looking forward to it. Again, get your answers in by Sunday, but we'll make sure they're included in our roster report card.
Well, if segment 1 was health, what would you do in 2024 to help the Angels? Then segment 2, Johnny, is going to be coaching. That's right. Really the theme of this next segment. And Jay Cano 89 on Twitter said, Arte should give Perry full control in hiring coaches. If you can lure Kyle Snyder or Brett Strom, that would be a big win. Bring in a veteran manager like Ron Washington or Showalter, re-sign Urshela. If you can't re-sign Show, trade for pitching. Don't sign Shohei, then maybe sign Nola or Giolito. Couple thoughts there, Johnny. I also was really intrigued by the Ron Washington conversation because Victor Rojas is a fan of his. And there's rumors that Buck Showalter is really interested in coming to the Angels. So both of those names, I think, would benefit the Halos. I think I would lean in the Ron Washington direction. Where would you lean?
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of Ron Washington as well. And I think you and I discussed this yesterday, or maybe we didn't do it on the show, but you think about Marcus Semien and how much he improved just by having Ron Washington be the infield defensive coach with the A's when they were both with the A's for that time. I mean, Marcus Semien was not a great shortstop or a great second baseman, and now he's one of the best in the league. So I would like to see how Ron Washington could impact there. Showalter's interesting because I think he wants to win, Mike. He's gotten teams to the playoffs time and time again, but they haven't won it all.
Fizzle out.
Somebody really put it well. He said Showalter is great at beginnings and terrible at endings.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like even if the Angels weren't going to be that team that gets him to the promised land, I think he could be really good for the Angels in terms of having a manager that they respect. And you've brought this up before, a little bit of fear of letting down. Like, you really want a manager that you feel bad when you lose. Like, oh man, I let him down. I let that guy down. I don't know if they had that with Phil Nevin.
Right.
I don't know if they had that with Joe Matt. I really think Socha was the last guy that these guys were bummed that they let down, that they were bummed that they didn't get him the win that time. And so I think Showalter could be that kind of guy. Now, he mentioned Kyle Snyder and Brett Strom. Brett Strom was with the Astros, was going to retire, and then he got home and went, you know what? I think I still got it. So now he's with the Diamondbacks as their pitching coach.
Look where they're at.
Kyle Snyder has been the pitching coach of the Rays since 2018. I think they're both going to stay.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to have enough to lure them away. They're great ideas, great coaches.
Yes.
But I just don't think that you're going to be able to pry them away from their situations right now, because I think they got a good thing going on. They would be foolish. Diamondbacks, Rays, they'd be foolish to let either of those guys go.
I think so. I think so. Yeah, absolutely. I look at what else Jay Cano 89 said, and re-signing Gio Urshela. I would love to see him come back. I think he deserves a second shot, and I would love to see him have a second shot because he was off to a really great start. I wouldn't go near Giolito. I think that Giolito is regressing, and I think he's going to get worse. I think he needs to be around a really good pitching coach. I think he needs to be around a team that can figure him out. So Dodgers, Tampa, those types of teams, I think, is where he would really thrive. I love Aaron Nola, but I think that there's maybe a better option. He might be more expensive if we're going to go get a free agent like that, and somebody mentions him later in the show, so we'll talk about that when we get there.
Lone Star Halo on Twitter said, bring in Craig Counsell. Give Shohei Ohtani a blank check.
Here you go.
Take the same kind of approach as last offseason, prioritize depth over one splashy free agent. It worked until the entire 40-man was hurt. And
true.
Yeah, he's not wrong. And then pray to rectify the sins of apparently building the stadium on top of an ancient Native American burial ground. That seems to be a recurring theme, Mike.
Yep. Listen, since you're going to sign up to be the scout, I'll sign up to be the chaplain. I have some credibility there. So I'll make sure that I can burn the sage and pray for the repentance of all sins, because something's got to happen in this organization, right?
What do you think about Craig Counsell, Mike? I know that his former GM is now with the Mets, and Counsell hasn't committed to coming back to the Brewers. Yeah, David Stearns, that's who it is over with the Mets, and also Billy Epler stepped down yesterday from the Mets. So I don't know.
Yeah, that might be. And in Counsell's, is he a free agent? Is that really what it boils down to? He doesn't have a contract for the next year yet, so he can kind of sign anywhere. I like Craig Counsell. I think that he's done a great job with I would say a small market team in Milwaukee. Sure. And those are the credentials we would need for the Angels. We're not a small market team, but as we mentioned yesterday, there is a small market mentality. And so Craig has been able to really squeeze out the talent in Milwaukee, even though they haven't had to go and spend a whole lot of money. And perhaps, I mean, Elvis Peguero had a good season under Craig Counsell. So maybe Craig Counsell can come and do something with the Halos next season.
But with all the success that him and David Stearns had together in Milwaukee, imagine the unlimited checkbook of Steve Cohen and Craig Counsell and David Stearns. Like they're going to be a three-headed monster over there. Hey, Nate Darling on Twitter said, I want Don Mattingly.
Love that. And
Blake Snell and really a real pitching coach.
Yes.
And then he sent us this graphic of Don Mattingly that says, this is a game of competition and adjustments. It's not showcases or spring training games. What worries me is that we're evaluating on some of the wrong things. You can't evaluate a player simply by exit velocity or launch angle and things like that. Hitting is about situations and adjustments to how you're being pitched to. What do you think?
Well, that sounds fantastic for this Angel team. It doesn't sound fantastic for this Angel front office. It sounds like there would probably be a bit of this, John, a bit of headbutting that would happen with Don Mattingly. And correct me if I'm wrong, isn't that what happened in Florida? Didn't they have a bit of tension with him with the Marlins?
Yeah, it was. And that's kind of one of the reasons why they didn't want to bring him back. So now he's bench coaching with Toronto, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Donnie Baseball, I'm a huge fan of
Donnie Baseball.
Right. I'm a huge fan of Donnie Baseball. He did well with the Dodgers and he did pretty well with the Marlins. But I think that, again, we've talked about synergy and Perry getting his guy. This doesn't sound like his guy. I love that quote. And I love how he sees the game. It just doesn't sound like he would be a great fit for what Perry and Alex Taman are trying to do in Anaheim.
Yeah. It goes to show that like there are great managers out there with a lot of potential, but you have to work within the realm of, again, who owns the team? Arte. Who's running the team? Perry Manassian, right? And so you got to find guys to create that synergy. Jacob Kirkup on Twitter said, "Hey guys, I think the team needs a coaching staff of experienced winners and playoff experience. What do you think of from those playoff teams could be good coaches in what positions? Examples like Percival in the bullpen, Lackey as like the pitching coach, Eckstein as like a base or a bench coach." Mike, I don't think that that's a bad idea, but again, it all comes back to synergy with the front office. Are you carrying out what the front office has for you in terms of, hey, again, we got this guy because he does A, B, and C. So can you get him to do A, B, and C on the field? And then the other thing I'll say, and you and I have talked about this before, I think every single pitching coach in the majors has not done very much in their career. There are two guys that, and Andrew Bailey is one of them, who like had relatively good success in their careers. The rest of them were like there for a hot minute and then were gone, or they were in AAA, or they've been a minor league pitching coach and they moved up. So it's not a matter of like having a bunch of success. It's how well you can communicate with the players and help them carry out the plan. And so while names like that get me excited, and I certainly think that they could thrive, I don't think that career success always equates to the qualities you need in a coach to get the job done. Now, you were talking about Maddox earlier and kind of having that bulldog mentality. I think Lackey could be that guy, like when to attack and when not to, and stuff like that. Even Percival, Eckstein would be an interesting choice as well. But I think when it comes to coaching and success, it really matters how much the coaches can communicate a plan to the players on the field.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by FanDuel. You can get in on all the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, now's the right time and a good time to get in on all the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options like the spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season the right way. FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL.
We're getting into our last set of fan mail suggestions on how to improve this team in 2024. And a lot of these ones are about the future, Mike, and maybe signings or coaching or managerial stuff. Classic Cards, one of my favorite follows on Twitter, he said, if they do re-sign Shohei, I think Arte sells the team. And I asked him, well, what do you mean by that? He said, Arte is all about money. He flirted with selling before. He could try to pull a Marlins Stanton situation where he re-signs Shohei for a big contract, then sells the team for a premium, and then he wouldn't have to be the one to pay that contract. Now,
interesting.
I think that's interesting as well, and it makes me think of what we were all saying last year. This team is so much more valuable in terms of a selling price with Shohei Ohtani on it. And the fact that he withdrew from selling the team and didn't sell it when he had the chance, and now that they don't have Shohei under contract for next season, as of right now, I think they left a lot of money on the table, Mike, in terms of selling this team. Don't you agree?
Yeah, 100%. And Shohei makes this team so much more valuable. And I think they missed the boat in not selling last season, and there isn't a guarantee that he is going to come back. You and I both have this gut feeling. A lot of Angel fans have a feeling that he is going to come back.
I think you have a bigger gut feeling than I do.
I think it is more me than you, right? I'll take that. And there's rumors about him and being connected with the Red Sox, and that seems
That's a weird one.
It seems reasonable in my mind. And the reason why it seems reasonable is because I think that he would thrive in Boston. I think the fans would love him.
He'd hit around that pesky pole. He'd hit home runs, wrap him around the pole.
He would get 50 home runs in the first month there. So
tons of automatic doubles because he would bounce him over the short wall.
He would totally bounce over. And he's that smart of a hitter. He could totally do that, Johnny. This is off topic just a bit, but I did see a great tweet. I think it was to @SuperHaloBros where somebody said, hey, could we make a trade of like bad contract for bad contract? And so somebody said, could we give the Yankees Rendon and we would take Giancarlo Stanton? And I was like, man, that actually, I wouldn't mind seeing Giancarlo Stanton in Anaheim, right?
I know.
Because we just, bad attitudes has really been what has sunk the ship in the last couple of years.
Yeah, Stanton's an interesting one, especially if we need a DH next season. I mean, that could be a good fit, but I know that his bat's not quite Stanton levels and doesn't really play the outfield much anymore. But again,
I first.
I don't think the Yankees would take that deal, Mike. I don't think they want Rendon over there.
No, because it's 4 years. I don't know how long the years are for each contract, but yeah, it would be a bad trade for a bad trade, right?
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Zorro on Twitter said the coaching staff is an obvious need.
Yep.
But this is the one I wanted to highlight. Stop getting the best players available.
Yeah.
But the correct players for this team. We need leaders that can guide these young guys.
Yeah.
I think there's a really interesting thought in that process. Stop getting the best players available, but the correct players for this team. I think a good example of that is, they wanted Garrett Cole. They didn't get him. So the next best guy was Anthony Rendon at the time, to be honest. Yeah. And I still contend the Angels needed a third baseman because they didn't really have anybody in the pipeline. They didn't have anybody coming up.
Sure.
And so I don't think that Rendon was a bad signing. But going back to Zorro's point, don't get the best players, get the right players for this team. What are your thoughts?
Well, remember when we talked about the Angels of the 90s and you asked me like, what was it that helped build up to the 2000s and why they were really good? And we talked about how the Angels didn't just go get the big free agent. Mm-hmm. They found the right pieces. Gene Autry was notorious in signing some really big names to bring him to Anaheim because he wanted to win, right? But he was also not bringing in, I would say, the most appropriate piece for the team. Now, it did work out more often than it worked out for Arte Moreno with Gene Autry, but he was a baseball fan and really loved this team. But I think that this Zorro on Twitter is spot on. I really think that we need to find the correct pieces. Like what's the best piece for this team right now and go and get that. Perry Minasian needs to say, not Trey Turner, let's get 4 other players. And he needs to do that again in this offseason.
Yeah, I agree. Aggie Nicky, one of our favorite listeners on Instagram, he said, nail the fundamentals, build the culture we all want to see, and manage expectations. Number one, I'll go back to what our nephew said a few weeks ago, Mike. The Angels forgot how to play boring, fundamental baseball. And I love that quote because it's so true. Like, they forgot how to play boring, basic baseball when it comes to defense and moving runners over and bunting and things like that. And that in and of itself is interesting baseball. It is fun to watch because your team is doing the right things and scoring, building a culture we all want to see. Mike, you've brought this up before and you've mentioned how it takes about 3 years for somebody to put their fingerprint on an organization. And Perry's coming up on year 4. Because 21, 22, 23. Yeah. So year 4.
Yeah.
And managing expectations. I like that in the sense of rather than saying, well, we plan on competing again next year. And that's like, not to say that the Angels or Perry Minasian are going to go out there and say, well, we really don't stand a chance. I'm not asking for that, but like, hey, we got a good group of young guys and we want to see how far they can take us.
Yeah.
Isn't that different than saying like, we plan on being competitive?
Sure.
And you know what I'm saying? Like,
sure.
And so I like the idea of managing expectations in the sense of, maybe we need to reel it in a little bit and be realistic.
Yeah.
But speak to the culture for a minute. Do you think this is the year Perry gets his hands on the team and leaves his thumbprint on this culture?
When we talk about getting a new manager and we talk about having a bit of fear and not wanting to let the manager down, John, we have 2 players specifically that have that built into them. Logan O'Hoppe and Zach Neto.
Yeah.
Because both of those guys have sat in the dugout. They watched other teams celebrate, and you can tell they really want to win. And I would even add Mickey Moniak into that. Mickey Moniak and the things that he has said in the conversations, interviews he's had after the season, Mickey has really been honest and said, hey, thanks for hanging in there with us. We're going to get there. We're going to get there. And I like the animosity, optimism. That's what I'm looking for. I like the optimism. But when you talk about fundamental baseball, I think that's a part of the culture, John. And here's what I mean by that. Why it's so needed for this team is because you have a shortstop that understands, I'm going to throw this ball to third. And he did it a couple of times, and he got the runner out at third. This is why you need fundamental baseball, and it's part of the culture, because that third baseman needs to be ready. And when Renjifo's in this starting lineup, he needs to know that he's got to hustle after that ball. I think Shonawell understands his role on the other side of things as well. I think the reality is that fundamental baseball is a part of the culture, and it cannot be negotiated in 2024.
Absolutely not. Last suggestion comes from our friend James Russell Barton on Instagram. He said, hot take, don't re-sign Ohtani. I love him, but that money could go to actual pieces we need. Yeah. Now, in this world of Arte owns the team, we have to deal with it. Perry's in charge, we have to deal with it. Ohtani and using the money they would spend on Ohtani for other pieces, I actually agree with that.
Agreed. Yeah.
I think the area that frustrates me, Mike, is that we are operating under this Arte owns the team, Perry's in charge.
Yeah.
Because this team and the money it makes and the money that Ohtani brings in should be able to bring Ohtani back and pay for other players they would use with Ohtani money. Am I wrong?
No, not wrong at all. And gosh, I love the suggestion of Blake Snell earlier in the show. And I think that he could be somebody the Angels could go after if they don't sign Ohtani. But you're right. There should be room for all of that. And if there's not going to be room, then I think James, it hits the nail on the head, because we can use that resource, $30 million, $40 million, and allocate that for maybe two really good starting pitchers, or maybe one really good starting pitcher and a bullpen guy, because I think that would be the best way forward. This team needs pitching. They need some help there. And to use that resource, I think would be wise.
It's unfortunate because the best scenario is that we have Ohtani and all of the other pieces that the Angels need. It's not going to happen with Arte Moreno. It should have, but it's just not going to happen with Arte.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Remember, you can grade the players, and we're going to talk about it next week. So check out that link in the episode description.
Hey, give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. And connect with us on YouTube. Leave a comment, hit that like button, subscribe. We'd love to hear from you. Mike, what do we have on deck for Monday's show?
All week long, we're going to be talking about what you want to talk about. We're going to talk about all the grades and comments that you've made about each of the players. Really looking forward to that. So we're going to start on Monday on Locked On Angels.
And we're going to take it, by infield, outfield, pitchers, bullpen, all that stuff. So we're going to take it group by group. All right, friends, have a great weekend. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, and we'll see you back here on Monday.
Yes, that is interesting writing. That was what I thought of when you said interesting baseball.
Always Seinfeld.